All right, welcome everyone. Hello and welcome. So we'll be talking today about Kickstarter, building readiness before you launch. And so this was sort of inspired by a talk that I gave at Oak City Indie Games. Who was at Oak City Indie Games? Make some noise. Everyone in this room. This is the best and fastest growing. It's going to be the next ECGC. We all know it. Yes. You know it. I know it. Right. Okay. So I gave a talk on Kickstarter there, and as I was organizing my slides for that, I realized this is not a talk, this is a workshop. Like, there's so much that goes into running a Kickstarter. So today we're going to dive just into one piece of running a Kickstarter, which is assessing, are you ready? Like, do you have the necessary components in there so you don't spend a bunch of time getting super excited and then launching it and then it doesn't go and you go, ah. But I will say the punchline of is that it's actually not that big of a deal. Like, you can just literally relaunch again and you've just gained experience and a bigger following. So you can also do that too. But I will be sharing my experience. So a little bit more about me. I've been doing games now for about 8.5 years, which is insane to say. PhD in psychology before that. Funny story. Made a mobile game called Amaru, the self-care virtual pet. It's been out there. Made Bubble League and some other things you guys may have heard of around here. And then, I've run now 7 crowdfunds, 6 of them being successful across Indiegogo and Kickstarter, and all of them being games except for one I did for my dad's book. So like, I've just done some different, Kickstarters. So I'm going to share with you some lessons from that. So first, like, what is a Kickstarter? Who here has never seen a Kickstarter, heard of a Kickstarter? Probably most people in here know what a Kickstarter is, right? Okay, but yeah, so all or nothing funding platform, right? So you have the ability to set a goal, raise money for that goal, and if you don't hit your goal, that's fine. Kickstarter just tells everyone, hey, here's your money back, no harm, no foul, right? So this is actually a really good system. What you don't want to do is raise 60% of what you need, and it's not enough to get something done, but you've still taken people's money, and now you need to deliver something and you can't, right? So this protects everyone from that happening. Another nice thing about this is all this funding is non-dilutive. That might not mean things to some people, but if you, for instance, work in investing spaces where people are taking shares in your company, that means they now own a piece of your company. The thing about a Kickstarter is, no, it's just cash. And like, generally speaking, it's good if you actually deliver. a lot of them don't. But people understand when they're financing a Kickstarter the risk they're taking, that this is something that you're trying to get off the ground. It might not work. Hopefully you get something cool out of the end. I am excited to say that we are a backer favorite. We have that little badge on our Kickstarter because we always deliver no matter what. So it hosts and promotes campaign. You guys know this. I'm going to keep moving. But actually, what you might not know. Okay, so this is a bit of a messaging platform as well. So people can leave comments. You can message back and forth. You can and should be very proactive about updating people in your Kickstarters. Use a lot of multimedia. We'll get into that. And lastly, it's going to give you a lot of data for fulfilling your Kickstarter at the end. And so that data is going to come in the form, one, of like, who are they? What did they buy? What's their address if you're doing shipping? That kind of stuff. But it's also going to tell you stuff like, where did your traffic come from? Did it come from ads that you ran? Did it come from your Discord? Did it come from Kickstarter itself, like their platform? And we'll talk a bit about that too. You do need to be good at like unique linking and things like that, which is beyond the scope of this talk, but you do get that data. So what do you need to run a Kickstarter? First, you got to have something that you're trying to fund. You need to have a funding goal. You need to know what you need to raise to do that. You got to have something to show. So a trailer, a demo, a beta, and a bunch of messaging. I'm talking like, you should probably plan a content calendar, because once this thing is launched, you don't want to be like, what do I say, right? You just want to be able to, like, on day 1, I'm launching this. On day 2, I'm launching this, and have all that contented out. So we'll talk about that. And you want to have a following. And this is the piece where some people are going to feel kind of defeated, but I'm going to encourage you to not be. But a following, you got an email list, a Discord, a social media following, or you have the means to acquire a following. So this might be an ads budget, or it might be a connection to an influencer, maybe a popular voice actor or streamer, or maybe Sam isn't here today, but those of you who know Sam makes games. Sam recently with Mech Tech won the Best in Show at Playthrough this year, right? So I said to him, Playthrough is now an email list that would be super interested in promoting your Kickstarter, right? So just think about, if you don't necessarily have a following, connecting to other followings, right? So a thing you're trying to fund. So some examples of what I've done. So Amaru, the self-care virtual pet, was our first and biggest. This was back in 2020, at the peak of the pandemic. So that was to finance our game. We then did a plushie. So we had people, they really liked our plushies. So we ran a whole Kickstarter just for the plushie, a very different campaign. I'll talk about why, went well. And the most recent one was actually some crossover collaborative content between myself and a similar mindfulness and meditation-focused game called Plane. So we did some crossover promotion and just did like a DLC, essentially, right? But if you look at the categories along the bottom, comics, crafts, dance, design, like if you've thought of it, you can probably kickstart it. They actually say you can't kickstart mobile games, and I did anyway, but that's a story for another day. So you got to have something that you're trying to make, and then you've got to have your goal. Now, this is tricky, okay? It's tricky to come up with your funding goal because the first thing you need to be able to do is you need to have a good sense of scope, right? What is it you're trying to build? What is it going to take you to get there? And like, if you're kind of a hobbyist and like you've got a full-time job and you don't need to be paid to do your thing, then it's just your time and it's not as heavy. But if this is how you pay your bills and stuff like that, right? So you might want to think of it in terms of like, what is my cost per month for my team to get it done, and multiply that out on how many months I need to get that done and get a sense of what your cost is for that. But then you've got to think about, who has backed a Kickstarter before? I see several hands going up, right? So, sometimes it's not just the game or the product that you're getting. It usually comes with like some swag, right? Maybe you get a plushie or an art book or a soundtrack or something like that. So you got to be careful with this physical merchandise though, because all that's got a cost, right? Stickers have a cost, books have a cost, plushies have a cost, especially with tariffs now. You need to be very careful with your manufacturing because you don't know what your cost might be like next month. So have backups, and you need to know what it's going to cost to ship it, right? So, and when I say know what it's cost to ship it, I don't mean ballpark it. I mean like get a sample shipped to you from your manufacturer. Get specifically the box you're going to use. Think about what stuffing needs to go in the box, what label needs to go in the box. Get a postage scale, weigh it. How much does it weigh? And then look online for different resources. Like pirateship.com, I highly recommend. It's sort of like lets you get shipping prices at a wholesaler's price, sort of. So be like, okay, if I'm planning on fulfilling this internationally, plug in some address in New Zealand and be like, what does Pirate Ship say it's going to take to get it there? It might be like $44, right? Now, for me, just because I'm lazy and also because it all comes out in the wash, my thing in the past has just been I do $10 domestic and $25 international, because generally speaking, most of the internationals are going to go to like Canada, and it's going to be around that. And once in a while, there'll be one at like $44 on the other side of the world. But I'm still, on the average, I'm not going to go under for catching those. But I have a link for a recent Kickstarter called Maya. They had these, they zoned it out where like every country was covered with an individual price for all those countries. And so that's something that you can do to have a more precise thing. And then lastly, you might want to think to yourself, like, it's a lot of work to run one of these campaigns. I kid you not. It's like a calendar work month, I would say, of work to run one of these things. So like, do you want to pay yourself for your time to do that? And then also Kickstarter has fees, about 8%, which I think is totally fair. So when you put all that together, you have your project budget. And you want to consider all this, because what you don't want to do is you're like, okay, I think my game, I can make it for, I don't know, $50,000 or something like that. But then you've spent $25,000 on merch and shipping, and also now you're 2 months behind your your production schedule because it took you so long to run the campaign. And now you have to deliver a $50,000 game for essentially $20,000, right? You just don't want to be in that position. So you want to factor all this in to build towards your funding goal. And I want to talk a bit about stretch goals. Probably if you've backed Kickstarters, you've seen there's like goals and stretch goals. And stretch goals will be like, okay, we're going to add an additional feature, an additional mode or something like that. That's great. I love stretch goals. Do stretch goals, but never like your base tier goal needs to be a complete game. Like if you need it to be a complete game, it's not a stretch goal, it's the goal, right? So stretch goals is just further out, further beyond. You got to have a story to show. So the most important thing's your trailer. So you need a compelling trailer, non-negotiable. Like you got to have, I would say, keep it under 90 seconds. I have seen 7-minute long Kickstarter trailers. Don't do that. I've also, to be fair, I have seen successful Kickstarters with 7-minute trailers, but most people are not. They're going to be hooked in the first 60 seconds or they're not. And you have a whole page below the trailer that they're going to see where you can tell your whole story, talk about your team, talk about your inspiration, all that sort of stuff. It just doesn't belong in the trailer, right? Trailer is something that somebody's going to consume very quickly and either decide I'm going to either follow this campaign or move on. So yeah, when we did Amaru, we had a beta. So like, it was pretty much a pretty complete virtual or a vertical slice. Like it had Amaru, you could pet him, you could feed him, you could do one meditation, you could play one mini game. It was a little whack-a-mole game that hasn't changed since that demo. It's literally the same thing every time. It's that, and yeah, so like we just basically, like we were like this, and if you fund us, it's gonna be more of this, right? You know, that's the general idea. I wouldn't say you have to have a demo or a beta to be successful, but I think the further along you are, it helps. I've actually moved away from a line that I used to use, which is Kickstarters are not your development budget. They're just your pre-order marketing that pays for itself. I think I've seen enough evidence to the contrary of that now to believe that you can actually raise a substantial development budget, but it's hard to do. We'll talk about how. And I haven't done it yet, but I'm gonna. It's like the next thing. All right, so I talked about this 6 weeks worth of bite-sized messaging formatted for your outreach channels. So I have a giant, do I have it on this slide? I don't have it on this one. Whenever I say you have a social media following, I put a big asterisk by that. I'm gonna talk about that later. But if you have an email list, emails are gold. Emails for me are always, when I look at what converts to backings, emails, like so much better than anything else. I think Discord's is like a second. If you start getting into, and also if you've run Kickstarters before, so I've run Kickstarters before, so that means that when I'm running a new Kickstarter, I update all my prior Kickstarters, right? So that's another like really good channel. But social media, if you're not paying them, they're not seeing it. Like, and the proof is in the pudding on some campaigns that went well and poorly for me. So just like if you think like, oh yeah, I can do this organic social media thing and I'm just gonna post a lot, no. And also, if you could do it, the amount of time you'd be putting into feeding that content engine, you may as well just plug into your ad budget. Like it's not the way. But if you are going to do social media and with a paid budget behind it, having templates for it can be super helpful. So for instance, on my left here, this Amaru with just like a user testimonial, this is a great template, right? So if I've got a 30-day calendar where I want to be able to post once per day, I can probably knock out 4 days of that just by throwing up a new testimonial in the same background, right? So that's a really easy, good template. This one here is more involved, but I've got, basically a title and like a cool background that you can't really see this with the glare, but then also I can drop, representations of different things in the campaign, right? So that's a template. This one here I really like. This should be going up every day, right? How close are you getting? And it's animated, so he's got a little butt wiggle. He's going for the cake, and at the end he jumps and he gets it. So having a cool, a template showing progress. People want to be a part of that progress story. And so the following. Okay, so this is where I hope people don't get too sad. Okay, so so having a following is super, super important, and I want to point out like why. So out of Kickstarter, like I said, you get data back. You get data back on where did your backings come from, right? And the green components of this are what Kickstarter is attributing to the platform itself. So there is something to be said for the fact that, yes, it's true. When you go on Kickstarter, there is a page and there are sort of promoted campaigns that you see, or ones that you can say like, you click, oh, I want to see what new visual novels are out or something like that. And there are games that will be covered in a different talk on how to tip that algorithm like in your favor so that you're likely to show up on those pages. But even when you do it well, that is not where the majority of your money is going to come from. It's from people that you bring to your campaign. And in fact, if those green things gave you comfort, let me make it worse. Because what they do is they take credit for this one here, email automated project launch followers, and it's a huge percent, like 14% of the campaign contributions Kickstarter is claiming came from an email that they generated. But how did they get the list for that email? I gave it to them, right? So that's me. So if you take that away, really only about 25% on a good campaign is coming from people who are just on Kickstarter and discover you from being on the site and being like, that's cool. Or there are these people who are like super backers who just love backing Kickstarters, and they get emails from Kickstarter that are like, these are the hot and trending, campaigns. And so like you will pick up contributions that way. It's not to deny it, but it's just like, you gotta bring your people, have to. And that's you've either got a following already or you're running ads. So yeah. Your existing following, 7 out of 10 people are going to need to be brought by you. This is honestly reiterating things that I already said in a different order. But yeah, but now I can bash on Facebook. So okay, cool. All right, so so I want to tell a tale of two campaigns, right? My first campaign was Amaru the Self-Care Virtual Pet in 2020. It was it honestly spoiled me by going as well as it went, right? And in that campaign, we ran one trailer, like, if we have time, I'll play it for you. And the reason I'll play it for you is to be like, you could make a better trailer than this. Like, I'm not like not to be mean to myself, but just to say, it's not like it was like, wow, this is the most amazing thing. It looked like a PowerPoint presentation, not dissimilar from this. They just had Amaru on it. He's really cute. So, but we ran this and we put $7,500 in Instagram ads or Meta Facebook Instagram ads behind it, and it generated $86,000 in contributions. Okay, so that was like a $8 return on ad spend, and I think it still works. Now, the reason I can't verify that it still works is because of campaign number 2. So campaign number 2, and by the way, and I generated a 16,000 person Instagram following in basically a month, right? So if you see people with big followings, they're usually purchased, right? We did it too. So that went really well. Second campaign, or in between the first and second campaign, a hacker got into our Facebook business account and ran some fraudulent Italian gambling ads. And we managed to get him kicked out and stuff like that. But basically after, that was in 2022, it's 2025. We're still locked out. No one over there cares. Okay, Meta does not care. They don't care. All right, they do not care about you. And so that 16,000 person following, they exist. Like, I can post things to them, but I am restricted from promoting to them. And because I'm restricted from promoting to them, they don't see anything, right? So when I ran my second campaign, I went out there and I went, okay, so I can't run paid ads, but it's cool. They're still my followers, right? Got 16,000 of them. And I came up with all these ideas of okay, we'll do like and share, and it enters you into a raffle for a free plushie every day, and it'll just snowball. It went nowhere, absolutely nowhere, right? Just had to cancel it after 4 days into the campaign. It was we're not anywhere close to where we need to be. Just pull the plug. So you do not own your social media following. Zuck does, and he's not a good person. So, yeah, whatever. I don't care. Fight me. Get emails, right? Get phone numbers, get contacts that you own, right? Because if you own them, they can choose to unsubscribe, and that's fine, right? They can choose to unsubscribe, but there's not someone paywalling you from talking to your people, right? So I don't know how TikTok works. I haven't been on it. So I don't know. Maybe it's better. But I would imagine it's the same funding model. So just own your contacts. So now, since then, and since I'm still locked out of Facebook and can't do anything with Amaru on it, I have since now generated an email list, and that email list is about 10,000 people. I also, in my Amaru app, if you play it, I have the ability to launch a pop-up at any time to tell people about things, right? So I've got 20,000 monthly users in Amaru, right? So when I have a campaign now, I send an email blast out, it hits 10,000 people. I send a pop-up into my app that hits 20,000 people. I've got a couple thousand in the Discord, boom, 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 boom. And now I've got, I can generate $13,000 for plushies without spending a dime in ad spend, right? So get your emails. And use social media, but only if you're prepared to put ad dollars behind it. And I think if you are willing, they work. If you're willing to put ad dollars behind it, they work. But the organic thing is a myth, at least in my experience. Maybe I'm not cool enough. I don't know. So how are we doing on time? I'm 20 minutes in? You're good. Great. Cool. Okay, so if you don't have an existing following, and maybe you don't have a plugin with an influencer or something, ads works. And again, I could spend a whole 2 days just talking about how to run paid ads. But the cliff notes of it is this: they have these giant platforms where you will upload your content. So that can be your trailer, it can be some stills. Usually nowadays they make you upload a bunch of different content formats, and then they say AI is going to pick the best ones, et cetera, et cetera. But you upload all of this there, and then in the past, you were able to have like lots of different dials and stuff and say like, I want to target people in this age demographic with these interests and things like that. A lot of it now is just like, give us your money, the AI is going to do it, and you just have whatever. Anyway, they don't want you to have any empowering information so that you can leave their platform. That's what it comes down to, okay? So, but you upload your ad materials and you tell them this is your daily spend that you're allowed to spend for me. $20 a day, $100 a day, whatever it is. Over the course of 30 days, you say you're allowed to spend this. And it goes, okay. And then it goes out there and it starts very just randomly and shows it around, but eventually it's tracking who's engaging with it, and it gets better and better and more refined, and it starts showing your ads to more and more people, better people, and it will give you your return on ad spend, and also you should calculate it yourself. And that's just simply doing this. How much am I spending per day, and how many contributions am I getting back on Kickstarter as a result? And you're gonna know really fast, right? You're gonna know like within a couple days. It's like if I spent $100 and I got $300 in contributions, go to the bank, take a loan, pour money into that thing. You found a money engine, put the money in the money engine. But if you are putting $100 out there a day and you're only getting $85 in contributions back, shut it down. That's not working for you, right? So the nice thing about it is that it's you can't spend nothing, but you don't have to spend much to know if it's working. So that's paid ads. I don't know, like I said, I don't have experience with TikTok, but I imagine it's probably a pretty similar model. And get those emails. Cool. If you have the ability to use someone else's following, this is a fantastic way to do it. So how I heard about this, this campaign, this Maya campaign, is that suddenly I'm just doom scrolling one day, and Hugo Weaving from Lord of the Rings pops up on my feed, and he's reading me a storybook, and I'm like, what? Right? Why is Hugo Weaving reading me the storybook? Like, I don't know what the story is, but I know I want Hugo Weaving to read it to me, right? So they just got Hugo Weaving to stick his face on camera and say, hey, I'll read you this audiobook, right? And these guys, these are Bollywood guys, are trying to kick off this massive new IP, and they want to make movies and all sorts of stuff with it. But they're starting small, and they're doing that by making an audiobook in their universe. And they're like, well, people probably aren't going to pay attention to us, but they'll pay attention to Hugo Weaving, right? But you don't necessarily need Hugo Weaving. It could be a smaller influencer, maybe just someone that you know from like con circuits and things like that. Get a voice actor of a game. So for instance, on Hawthorne down here, again, it's a pretty big one, but Hawthorne, they got Geralt from The Witcher to stick his face on camera. And also, he didn't even say, I'm gonna do it. He just said, if you take me to the $2 million stretch goal, I will do it. Right? So it's like, you get someone on here who's just willing to basically run an ad for you and be like, yo, if you get me way out here, but the value is still done. Like, it's still Geralt saying something in a gravelly voice. Right? Lastly, another example I have here is Focus Friend by Hank Green. So Focus Friend is literally like one feature in Amaru. It took like 1 month maybe to make. It became the fastest, it temporarily knocked ChatGPT off of the charts for most downloads, and it's like the number 6 of like top grossing productivity apps on the App Store right now. And all it is like, I have a hard time paying attention, so I'm gonna have this bean knit. And you push a little timer and you say, if I don't look at my phone for 15 minutes, the bean's gonna knit me a sock. And then I cash the sock in and I can decorate his environment. But you know what? Hank Green has 8.6 million TikTok followers. So he said, hey, I made an app where a bean knits for you. And it knocked ChatGPT off of the thing, right? So you can leverage other people's followings if you got them. And this could be, again, it doesn't have to be someone as famous as Hugo Weaving. Think about, like, is there a musician that could potentially offer to do one track for you, or an illustrator to do one color, like one concept art piece for you or something, and then you can tap into their followings. And I said this earlier, but like Sam could tap into like playthrough for like the award that he wants. Just think about other followings that you could tap into. What's that?
I'm Sam, so everything since Sam, I'm gonna like pay attention.
Are you Sam as well? Sorry about that, okay. All right, so now I've got some math and I'll share these slides. But basically at this point, you're kind of like, okay, Gabe, well, yeah, I get that I need a following, but how big? How big of a following? Or I know I have an ads budget, but how big of an ads budget, right? So there are some truths mathematically that I have found that I think is pretty helpful. So what you can do is you can say, okay, I've got a following size of blank. So I would say my following size is maybe something around 20,000 people, right? And I've got a conversion percent. I'm a very pessimistic person. I'd like to think that maybe 1 to 2% of people who follow me are going to give me money. And I think most of the data tends to bear that out, right? And then you multiply that to get how many expected backers you will get. Okay, my following is this big, and 2% of them will become backers. Then I've got this many expected backers. Okay, cool. And then you think, well, how much money could they potentially give me? Like, what would be the average, right? And what do you guys think? Like, anyway, it's higher than I thought anyway. I was told to try to have like a $25 sort of buy on Kickstarters. But what I have found, aside from my first Kickstarter, which I feel like very much undervalued because I didn't know what I was doing, every Kickstarter that I've run, the average pledge has been closer to $70. So think about that. So it's like, okay, well, how many like backers do I have, and how many? Okay, multiply that by $70, right? And then will that get me 80% to my funding goal? Why do I say 80%? Anyone remember?
Take out?
What's that?
Take out a percent?
Not quite. So I'm saying if this can get us 80%, that 20% is going to come from the Kickstarter platform itself, right? Because you are going to find additional people there, right? But if your following can get you 80% to your goal, cool, right? So I wanted to talk about it very briefly. This could also be its own talk. How do you get them to give you like $70, right? Because you're like, nah, man, my game's like accessible. It's like $25 or something like that, right? Okay, so imagine you're making an indie game at $25. Do not devalue your game by trying to like give like super discounts. Like, oh yeah, come to my Kickstarter and I'll give you this game for like $10, which Hollow Knight did, which is insane. But so charge the full price of your game, but make it special. Don't devalue it by making it cheap. Make it the same price, but make it special. And also, you can do a little bit of discounting for early bird rewards. That's for tipping the algorithm. It's a different thing. But for instance, put like a little exclusive loading screen badge just to make it a little special. Okay, cool. I backed the Kickstarter. I paid the price I would pay if I got it on the first day on Steam or something, but mine's special. It's got this special loading screen badge that only people who backed it on Kickstarter get, right? For another $10, okay, we'll throw in an extra exclusive title screen or a little skin, right? At $50, now it comes with a digital soundtrack. At $60, maybe a digital art book. You're gonna have to make the concept art anyway, slap it into a PDF and ship it, right? On down. I made names in the, if you scroll Amaru, there are so many names in the credits, it's actually kind of awesome. But this is actually something you can charge a lot more for. Like, okay, for like $100, your name goes in the credit, and maybe you get a special role in Discord, right? You get to be in a special channel for only people who do that stuff, right? Notice at this point, I haven't even thrown in physical merch yet, right? So, and then go all the way down to like, who thinks you can get $1,200, someone to give you $1,200 on Kickstarter? I did, a lot. It was during the pandemic. I said, give me your stimmy. Yeah, give me your stimmy, $1,200. People will do it. Hollow Knight up here, Cloth, you probably saw this amazing NPC. That's a Kickstarter backers reward. They sold NPCs.
No,
like,
I feel bad.
what's that?
No, I feel bad.
You
You died in my playthrough.
Oh, rip Cloth. I see what I did there. Yeah, but look, that's that Noah Strutridge, right? He backed at a certain level and he got to co-design this character with Team Cherry. And we have one of our most beloved features in Amaru is the burn journal. So we have it's like a journaling, there's a component to that because it's a mental health game, where you can type into the burn journal and it's a venting space, so you can vent about stuff and then set the page on fire when it's done. And that was inspired by one of our backers. Like this is one of our 12 hundos. Like I was like basically like, we'll just make a feature for you, which you shouldn't do. You should do something more scalable, like a character. But we didn't know what we were doing. So we were like, yeah, we'll make a feature. And so also, who's played Amaru? Show your hands. Cool. If you ever feed the fortune cookies into Amaru's mouth and it reads you a little joke, that's from my buddy Jimmy Murray. He was also one of our 12 hundos. He's a comedian, so we took like 50 of his jokes and turned them into fortune cookie jokes and feed them. Anyway. So yeah, you can get creative. But yeah, don't devalue your work, and you can get that average contribution up there. So, okay, so like I plugged in some random numbers here. All right, I got 10,000 person following, that's 150 backers, $70 a person. Okay, that's gonna come out to $249. is that, oh wait, so my funding goal is 5,000. Okay, is that number bigger than 80% of that, which is 4,000? Sure, cool, that's a shippable, that's a good one. And for those of you taking pictures, we'll send you these slides. It'll be a lot better quality.
Thank you.
All right. So this part's gonna get a little weird because so we said okay, what if we don't have a big enough following, right? So that's the next thing here. What if we're not there? We're gonna be talking about two different pre-launch pages. All right. There's one pre-launch page that you're gonna host on your website and you own it. And then there's another pre-launch page that is the official Kickstarter pre-launch pages. These are very different and they serve very different purposes. Okay. The first pre-launch page is going to be super simple, and in fact, I'm going to show you one right now. This one was for the Amaru and plane thing, and so I've got a picture, I've got a couple of paragraphs talking about what it is, I've got some social proof of like these are some awards that Krish won with plane, isn't that cool? And I don't even worry about this button, it wouldn't even be there at this stage. I've got our trailer, which I can get.
I created my first ever video game called Plane.
And we keep on going, and we have an email capture form. All right, this is your first Kickstarter landing page where you're just going to talk about the project at whatever stage it's in. And this is like if you're at conferences, you could have a QR code that could take people here. You could put up posters, blast it to your Discord, whatever. If this is just where you're trying to gain those emails, right? That's this. This is different from the Kickstarter one. And the most important thing being the gain those emails thing. I'm kind of a broken record about that, but like owning your data. The second Kickstarter page I'm about to talk about exists and is great for a different purpose, but if you only rely on that one, Kickstarter will own those contacts, not you, right? So it's all about owning your contacts. And I lost myself. Here we are. Okay, oh yeah, you can get these slick Kickstarter branding assets that make this look cooler. So like if you've ever seen, and I probably can show a few more examples of this, these things, like, oh, it's not showing. It's only, it's still showing that. That entire time that was it not doing it?
We saw the page.
Huh. Well, that's curious. That's curious. Maybe I need to minimize the other one. Oh yeah, let's do that. This is Gabe's loading music. Boop, boop, doop, boop, boop, doop, 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 doop. Do you like it? It's really good, right?
Okay.
There we go. Cool. All right. So you may have seen like these little like banners like just launched and nearly funded and stuff like that. So yeah, they ship it to you in a little zip, and they're all formatted like to fit social media things, right? So it's like this is your square one for your Instagram, and this is your full size one for other formats. So yeah, you can get those. I think those look really slick. They give you logos, badges, how to use them, all that kind of stuff. So you can get that to make your Kickstarter launch page look really cool. Yeah, so get people to go to that and gather emails. And then we're going to come to the second one, the second pre-launch page. And so this is where this is later in the campaign. This is where you are further along. You've done your first batch of math and you've said, okay, I think that this thing is doable. And now you've actually gone into Kickstarter and you've actually populated everything, which if we have time, I will show you what Amaru's look like. But you've actually gone in, you've made your trailer, you've made all of your story, your rewards and everything, it's all there. You can then create this page and direct people to it. And this is actually hosted on Kickstarter.com. And you're gonna tell everyone in that giant email list that you just created, you're gonna message them and you're gonna say, go to this page and mash that notify me on launch button. Okay, the notify me on launch button, remember that Kickstarter email that I told you about that they try to take credit for? It's that. So you're gonna get people to do that, but it is absolutely the biggest like, wait, actually I beat it one time, but it is one of the biggest draws of cash for yours. So you can see we've got Slate Aspire here coming soon. This is like the first one I pulled down. It doesn't have a funding goal listed yet. And also this isn't even a trailer. They won't even let you run a trailer. That's another reason why I prefer having my own landing page, because you have more control of what you can show. But you can see they've got 20,800 followers on it, right? So like, okay, 20,800 followers, and that's probably gonna have an average contribution of a lot more than $70. and they're going to make a lot of money. Like, that's $1 million campaign. It's really cool. But cool. So you've generated your big email list, and now you've built out your Kickstarter, and you send people to this page, and you get everyone to mash the Notify Me on Launch button. And don't worry, it's not like it just launches without you. It's not even on a timer. Like it doesn't launch until you say so. But when you, I've already said all this stuff. Okay, but when you have those numbers, I've discovered this maths pretty well across all the campaigns that I've done. And that is that about 30-ish% of this number are going to back you. All right, so 30% of those people are going to back you, and they're going to get you about half of the money that you're going to get. The other half of the money you're going to get is going to come from people when your campaign is already live who land there and back you without ever becoming followers. They don't ever do the follow step. They just see it and they go, I want it, right? So I've done campaigns now with $50,000 goals, $5,000 goals. This math has mathed across all of those different conditions. So I would say this is your final yes. Like if you're like, I'm about to launch this thing, I know what my goal is, and I've got enough where 30% of my Notify Me on Launch count is going to get me halfway to that goal, you've probably got yourself a winner. That's the math that I've seen at least across my experience. All right, so my timer has changed because I kept it clicking off. Where are we now?
5:38. You're good.
Okay, so I'm gonna do some like FAQs that I imagined you already are queuing, and then we can queue for other queues. I'm so clever. So
Humble too.
so humble. All right, so what if I'm nowhere close to like hitting my budget? Like there's two things I would say. One, keep gathering context. Just keep doing it. Like it's a slow, steady thing. It's just a snowball that builds over time. So just keep doing it. But the other I would say is scope down. So if you've got this giant game that you want to make, you got to do concept art for it. Can you make an art book? You're going to have a narrative for it. Can you make a narrative? Can you make some sort of narrative deliverable? Could you make a soundtrack? Like, is there some piece of your game that you're going to have to make anyway that you could actually make first, package, and ship? Because if so, do that. Because you're going to, one, like get experience, two, get a following, also get a following of people who learn that you're someone who delivers on your promises. That's super important. And get some money back to the door, right? So I would say if you can't make a game right now, make a script. If you can't, or a soundtrack or an art book, right? Like all of that is work that you're gonna have to do anyway, so you don't have to do it all at once, right? Now, also, it does have to be something like complete though. Like it can't be like, I'm gonna ship you my vertical slice. That's probably not gonna do it, right? But if you could find a way to make that vertical slice feel like a complete micro game, like cool, like some people will do it. I saw a game recently that's runtime was like under an hour, but it was charming enough and people liked it, so cool. All right, what if I launch and I don't hit my goal? No problem, fam. It's all good. You're just gonna get reset to the beginning. You'll have an additional following as a result of it. And yeah, there's really no biggie. The only thing you're out is your time. So no big deal. What if you fund, but you realize you didn't raise enough? This is the position that you really don't want to be in. All right, this is a crappy position. You don't want to be here. Because now you have taken people's money and they have expectations of you. And you are going to have to be a very humble person. And you're going to need to update them a lot and keep them involved and maybe take voting and polls of like, what would you prefer? It's like, okay, I'm not going to be able to give you everything that I said I'd give you. What would you like, right? See if you can work with them. Now, at the end of the day, you can, there's no, like, honestly, you can completely rip people off. Like there's no protection, right? You could just don't do that, please don't. It brings down the whole legitimacy of the program. But I mean, like, it's not like they can come after you, like they can't. But, generally speaking, you should deliver on what you say you're going to deliver. And if you can't, be very humble about it and see if you can engage your community and scope down elegantly. That was the punch. I thought there was one more question. There's not. So I'll turn them over to you, but first I'll say hire me if you like what I'm doing. I'm a game designer, I'm a creative director, I make lots of cool stuff, and I also know how to fund it. So yeah, hire me if you need that. Cool, questions, anyone? Jack.
You mentioned earlier that you want to make something that's going to have people actually
see that it's a finishable product, and you don't want to ship your vertical slice essentially. What would you say the ideal is for sending a demo? You want to be able to show off something of what you're trying to kickstart, but you don't want to show them a full game or promise features that aren't going to be there. What is the sort of limit as to what you can and cannot send initially for backing a game or just trying to ship a game or fund it?
Sure, thanks. Yeah, that's a great question. So first thing I would say is make the micro experience that you're shipping still in the context of the bigger story that you're trying to tell. So for instance, I've had this game that I've wanted to make for a long time. It's called The Fog of Maya. It's going to happen one day. And in that game, I've got all these crazy physics mechanics. I've got these elemental mechanics. I've got this narrative. I've got all the stuff that I want to do. And I actually know, factually, it's probably going to be 2 or 3 games before it's that game, right? I might make a full game just focusing on that physics mechanic, right? But I can still sell it, and I can tell it in the story of, hey, if you finance this, maybe it still takes place in the same narrative universe. You can find different ways to tie it in, but let people know it's this game, but it's a full game. It'll be a full, complete, cool game, is building towards something bigger. So that's one thing I would say. I don't know if it quite answers your question.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay. But I will also, when I say don't ship your vertical slice, I mean, you could ship a vertical slice, I guess. It's good. I guess it's just got to set clear expectations about what people are getting. But what I mean is don't send something that's unfinished. Don't send something that's unpolished. If it's small, fine, but just needs to be polished within what it is. It needs to have a good title screen. It needs to have an ending credits. It needs to feel like a full, complete experience.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to try probing me further? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
how do you make sure that you don't include something in the vertical slice that's not going to be in the full game? Or just you have an idea for the concept, but scaling it up or trying to include it to a larger degree doesn't seem feasible before the time runs out or on the budget that you have?
So you're asking, how do you make sure, I mean, are you asking whether or not the vertical slice itself is a reasonable scope?
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, that's just scope smaller. That's what that is. No, hey, that's great, that's cool. But yeah, one thing I would say is also talk about it as a community building experience as well. So hey, I've got all of these different mechanics that I want to put into this big, beautiful game later. I hate that phrase I just used. Into this big game. I'm making this great game, the best. I'm making the best game. And I want feedback on it, right? And so I want to make some prototypes and things like that. I want to sample some of these features, but I don't know necessarily if I want to hitch myself to the star of making this 10-act game before I've gotten any feedback on whether or not these mechanics are actually fun. So let's make a smaller game where we test out some of these things, and then as a community we'll decide, hey, you know what, the elemental thing's kind of a distraction. It'd be cooler if we just focused on the physics, You never know. So yeah, I mean, look at the difference between Zelda 1 and Zelda 2. It's very different thing. I love Zelda 2, by the way. Yep. There you go.
So I was wondering, what are your thoughts on providing an early access build of your game to the Kickstarters before the actual game launches? And do you have access to the contact information to everyone who backs you so that you could send them things like that?
Great. So the question was what do you think about providing early access? And two questions really. And the second question was, do you get the contact information from Kickstarter for everyone who backed you? First, I would say providing some sort of a demo is a fantastic thing to do. I mean, that's what we did with Amaru. So we had testers before we even launched our Kickstarter, and that's why we were able to have reviews and testimonials and early feedback and stuff like that. So I would say the farther along you are, the better, right? This is about closing the gap between you and shipping something. The gap might be bigger or smaller for other people. Now, the question you had about do you own the data that Kickstarter gives you for people who back you. So first, in terms of that notify me on launch thing, no, right? So if the people who follow you, if they don't become backers, you will never get their information, which is why I recommend that you get it yourself. That being said, for people who do back you, you do receive those emails. However, you also have to sign and check off in like 10 different places from Kickstarter that you will not use that email list for anything other than fulfilling the Kickstarter. You will destroy the list when you're done with it. Like, so technically it's like they give it to you, but if you follow the things that you said you're going to do, you don't own it. Kickstarter still owns it. However, there's nothing wrong with, and I certainly have done, when you have your Kickstarter, you have the ability to update people. And on the updates, you say, hey, I'd like to stay in touch with you. Please sign up for my email list. And that's how you get those contacts. Back to Mr. Tomato.
So between when you fund your project and when you fulfill that, when you ship your game, like what would you say are the best practices for keeping your community active and keeping everyone happy while they wait? I feel like that's a big thing that I see a lot of Kickstarters kind of like flounder in that area, and then everyone's angry by the time the thing comes out. So I'd love to hear what you think.
Update, 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 update. Just be very, very proactive about your updates. Let's see if I can do this without breaking everything. Let's go to the very first one. "94 updates." All right, so not all of them happened. Some of them are me telling them more about like additional Kickstarters that are coming and things like that. But I would say between the time that Amaru, the first Kickstarter, funded and the time it shipped, we probably sent 80 different updates. So let people know what's going well. Make it. Don't be lame. Make it like, you know, put some pictures in there, you know, throw some video, like show people what's going on. We ran a fan art contest for this last one, so there was a lot of good stuff to be able to update with, right?
So like twice a month or so, or once a month?
Yeah, or just whenever. I would say at the minimum, I would say even if all you're saying is like, hey, going steady, still grinding, like if that's all you got. But hopefully you at least have something to show, like even if it's just a screenshot or even if it's just a picture of you looking real sad. Like, you know, because they care about you too. I mean, I did a silly thing where I ate a spicy pepper to hit a goal. It was funny, you know. So yeah, you know, you can do silly things like that. But yeah, let people know you care. Yeah, Amaru was super late. Like, I mean, we shipped. I mean, we got what we wanted out way after what we planned, and then we continued to have to backfill features for quite a while. So I would also say, don't hold it back until like every single thing is done. Like give them something as soon as there's something to give them, and then update. That's a good thing too. Jack, you have another question?
Yes.
Okay, I'll give it to you in a second, but I'm actually going to follow up with the question that you asked last time, which was if you do have to scope. Was it like if you do have to scope down, like how do you handle that? Or
Yeah, like if you promise something
Yeah.
ahead of time that you can't quite meet
Yeah.
with the deadline.
Yeah. So again, just update people. If you do have to reduce scope, I think polls are a really good way to handle that. Say, hey guys, like we can't do all of this stuff, so we're going to put a vote to the community. You know, let's focus on these things so that we give you 2 good things instead of 3 not good things, right? Or something like that. I brought this up last time and I want to do it again here. When you're creating your content for like your rewards of what you want to make, don't like keep it simple with like things like little vanity skins and stuff like that. We made the mistake one time where we made this really beautiful feature of this like animated early bird that it was for the early bird backers. It's like 1,000 frames. It was so stupid. Like anyway, it was this huge feature that probably only like 30 people in the world are going to get to see because we put it behind like this tiny like tier. So like, you know, don't paywall like your best content. You know, like just make it about like just vanity and clout, honestly. Janie?
So I apologize if you already covered this, but I know you mentioned having the notify me of launch page, right?
Correct.
How long can that exist? Should that exist before launch?
indefinitely and as long as it needs to.
So there's no like limit
Nope.
from Kickstarter?
Nope. Nope. I mean, how long did we all wait for Silk Song? I mean, if it's good enough, like people will wait. I mean, keep people updated, keep people interested. That's. I would recommend. Again, there's you can not take my advice if you want. You can go straight to that step instead of making your personally hosted pre-launch page. I just recommend you do the personally pre-launch page because you're, one, going to own that data, and two, you're going to have a lot more control over what you do.
Jumping right off from where you just spoke, what tools would you recommend using to notify people who have decided to back you specifically through your email listings? Like, is there anything like MailChimp or like Elon Acid, or just something that you would recommend using to notify those people?
That's a fantastic question. Yes, I use SendGrid, so that's a Twilio product. They also do texting. I have not become egregious enough to send people texts, but I think it's something that you can do with time. Yes, as I just get darker and colder. I will text you about that, Amaru. No, I do emails. I use Twilio for that. And then again, like I said, Kickstarter has its own updating thing. So if you're talking to an existing following you already have on Kickstarter, leverage that update a lot. At everyone. If you're in my community, I'm going to at you. I'm not going to at you a lot, like I'm going to have something real to say because you don't want people to mute you. That's actually, on both of those points about being muted on your servers or being unsubscribed or flagged as spam with emails. Like Twilio is really good about giving you metrics back about what is your open rate, what is people flagging your spam at and stuff like that. And they give you a reputation score. And that's really good because if your reputation, mine never falls below 95%. I think if you start to waver into the low 90s, you start running the risk of your emails getting sent into that like promotions folder or that updates folder where people don't look anymore, right? So you do want to be judicious. And when it comes to social media, every day, every single day, you got to be posting for that. For email, for actually, I would even say for Kickstarter updates, I'm pretty like whenever I have something to say, like especially if it's something like, hey, we submitted to iOS, we're waiting, and then a day later we're through, I'm going to hit them right away. I mean, they're waiting for that, right? But don't send spammy emails or at everyone's. Like that's going to be like, especially over a campaign, maybe once a week,
So when you say for social media, like post every day.
Every day.
In terms of like, I guess, the scale of what you're posting each day, can it vary like within like, oh, here's a post where it's a huge update, and it's like, here's a post where it's like, here's a little screenshot, and you can just like, it can vary within each day. It doesn't have to be like a huge update or something particularly meaningful each day. It can just be something like, here's this little thing, like just to keep it in people's minds, I guess.
Absolutely. That's exactly what you're doing.
And